Good morning. I'm back with you, and today we're going to make pot au choux. This is the pastry dough that we're going to be making this coming week in class and next week in class to make the eclairs. So pot au choux is the dough, eclair is the pastry we make from the dough. We also can make other things from pot au choux. We can make profiteroles, we can make cream puffs, we can make gougères, we can make chouquettes. There are a lot of different things that you can make from this one pastry dough. This is probably the easiest pastry dough you're going to make. The tricky part is trying to pipe it properly, consistently, same shape. That's where the challenges come. So okay, let's get started. I have taken our recipe directly from our textbook, and I'm only making a third of the recipe. So I have my water. I'm going to add the butter to the water, and I'm going to add the salt. I'm putting this on the stove so that it can come to a full rolling boil, which it should do pretty quickly. I've cut the butter up into bits, and I actually kind of pre-warmed the water so that we could get to the quick with this. In this bowl, I have bread flour. And in our kitchen at SUNY Schenectady, we have two types of bread flour. One is called winter wheat, the other is called spring wheat. The bread flour that we use most consistently is winter wheat, and that's what I have in this bowl. So this is starting to come to a boil, and once it comes to a boil and that butter has completely melted, I'll give it a little encouragement. We're going to add this flour all at one time. I'm going to pull this pan off the heat, and we are going to pour that flour in all at once. Okay, back with you. We have a full rolling boil, so our water, our salt, and our butter they're rolling, they're boiling. I'm going to turn the heat off, and I'm going to add this flour all at once. And then I am going to, besides making a mess, I am going to stir vigorously. I've turned the heat off completely, but I'm stirring quite energetically to create a soft dough, which you can see begins to pull away from the sides of the pan. Now, once this dough has pulled away from the sides of the pan, as you can see this one has, I'm going to turn the heat back on to medium, and I am going to cook this out maybe another 15 seconds just to make sure we cook that flour and butter and water up a bit. So similar to roux, like when you're making a roux in food prep, you cook that flour and butter together just to kind of cook out that starchy taste, and that's sort of what we're doing here as well. All right, I would say we've done a fine job at that. I'm now going to transfer this dough to the mixer bowl of a stand mixer fitted with a paddle attachment, and I'm going to mix it until it cools to about 140 degrees. I have the dough in the mixer bowl. It's being paddled around with a flat paddle, and as you can see, steam is coming out of it. So it's too hot for us to add the eggs to yet. Once it cools a bit, and I like to say 140, once it's at 140, we can begin to add the eggs. So I'm going to open the mixer so you can see it. I've cooled this down to probably 130, 140. I can put my hand on the bowl and keep it there, so I know this is not going to cook the egg. So I'm going to drop the bowl. I'm going to take one of my eggs and plunk it in there. I'm going to help it so I don't put too many. And I'm going to start the mixing process. When you first add the egg, you're going to see that it kind of breaks up. Our goal is to have a smooth, uniform mixture. So I'm going to turn the mixer on so you can see the process. So you can see it's looking chunky. And it goes from this chunky mixture to a very smooth mixture with sufficient mixing. It's starting to come together. And it has the batter, the dough itself has completely absorbed the egg. So I'm going to turn the mixer off. I'm going to scrape down the sides. You want to do this frequently. And what we have is a smooth ball of dough. What we need to have is a finished product that's nice and smooth, but we also have to add the rest of the eggs. So I'm going to plump in another egg. There we go. Added 3 eggs so far. I have the last egg going in. I'm going to turn the mixer on, add the egg, and we're going to continue to mix until this mixture is nice and smooth and shiny. Okay, so we're finished. We've added all 4 eggs to this mixture, and as you can see, it's smooth and looks great. I'm now going to show you how to get this into the pastry bag. Okay, so we're finished. We've added all 4 eggs to this mixture, and as you can see, it's smooth and looks great. I'm now going to show you how to get this into the pastry bag. Here's a little trick for you. This is an offset spatula, a 4-inch offset spatula. Sometimes they call it a crank spatula. This is an awesome little tool. You can get it at the bookstore, and it's invaluable. This will scrape all the goodness off of this beater paddle. And that way we're not wasting any. So if we leave a half of an eclair on this flat paddle, our bosses won't be happy. All right, so we have a super smooth mixture. The next thing we're going to do is prepare a pastry bag for piping. So what I have here is a disposable 18-inch pastry bag. The first thing we do with this is make a cup. You want to make a cup in it, so we're folding it about halfway. And you can put your hand in there, and there's your cup. What that does is keeps the outside of the bag super clean, which is important. If you get pot de choux on the outside of this bag and it gets greasy, you're going to have a very difficult time piping. Now, I have 2 different tips here. I have an 803 and an 806. Either one of them will work. If you use a smaller one, you have to squeeze a little bit harder. If you use a larger one, you don't have to squeeze quite as much. The way we get these in here properly is to take, here I use a larger one, I won't squeeze so hard. You take the small open end and you force it into the bottom of the bag and give it just a tiny little push. Take a pen, a pencil, or a marker and mark off at about 1/4 inch, a little line, so that you know where to cut. Push the tip back, take your scissors and snip along that line. And then you push your bag, and your tip is securely in the bag. We're gonna take this bag and we're gonna stuff it, this part, into the tip. And that prevents the pot de choux from dripping out when you pull the bag out. The rest of it, we're going to fit over this quart container. So we're putting our cup over the quart container, pushing down the bag into the bottom of the quart container, and then I'm gonna take our pot de choux, scrape it out of the bowl and into the bag. Can you see that? Look at this. I'm not leaving any behind, because anything you leave behind in this bowl is money. So let's turn it into money. Every last little bit of it goes in there. Okay, let me put this over here in the sink. And what I have now is a half sheet pan fitted with a piece of parchment paper, marked off at 4 inches wide. The eclairs that we're piping are 1 by 4. So here's our little, from here to here is 4 inches. I've left a little space in between so that you can have 3 rows of 4-inch long eclairs. The trick to this is to now lift the bag out of the quart container. It's nice and clean on the outside. I'm going to lift and I'm going to squeeze and I'm going to lay this flat and I'm going to press the pot of choux towards the end. I have a bowl scraper, squeezing, squeezing, squeezing. I'm going to twist the bag and now I'm going to pipe. Now this is the tricky part. You want to start piping just shy of the line. And you're going to hold the bag at a 45-degree angle, and I like to put my finger there to try to coax it into the right shape. You're going to squeeze until it is about 1 inch wide. Stop squeezing and just pull it back. Give yourself 1.5 inches, repeat. Squeeze, stop, and pull back. Squeeze, stop, and pull back. Now, as I'm piping, it's important for you to know that I'm not just doing this, because that's what happens. I am squeezing and allowing it to fan out to 1 inch. Okay? If you just squeeze, this is what's going to happen. Right? You see that? Skinny, skinny? We don't want skinny. We don't want truck driver. We want 4 by 1. So again, squeeze, allow it to fan out. How do we do that? We squeeze and move a little slower and pull back. All right, that's pot of choux. I'll show you the finished product when they come out of the oven. So here we go. A third of a recipe, which is what I made a dozen 4 by 1 eclairs. I got one little truck driver guy over here. He had a little air pocket, so he's a little wonky shaped, but these are for the most part 4 by 1. I'm going to put them in the oven at 425 degrees. They're going to stay in there for 15 to 18 minutes, and then I'm going to lower the oven to 375 to finish cooking them. These will take about 35 to 40 minutes to fully cook. All of the water that's in this dough is going to turn to steam. The goal is to push the top of the pastry up and hollow it out. Then we pipe the pastry cream in them. All right, I'll show them to you when they come out of the oven. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here's the finished product. We have 1 dozen baked off eclair shells ready to be filled. I have a pastry cream video I'll be posting as well, so please watch that, and I will see you next week.